This conference will now be recorded.
We're live, Chair. Chair, we're ready to go. Whenever you're ready, please call the meeting to order.
Let me call this meeting of the Ocean Ridge Board of Adjustment to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Sloat,
Here.
Vice Chair Cody,
Present.
Member Bingham. Here. Member Hinton,
Present. Member
Joa. Here.
Okay, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion and second to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting.
I move to adopt the minutes.
Counselor, could you ask for a vote?
Vice Chair Cody, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Member Joa, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Member Bingham, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Chair Sloat, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Member Hinton, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye. Agenda item 4, variance request for 3 Fayette Drive.
An application submitted by Robert and Melanie Rodriguez as owner for a parcel property located at 3 Fayette Drive, Ocean Ridge, Florida 33435. Requesting a variance from the provisions of the Land Development Code, Chapter 64 zoning, Article 1, District Regulations, Section 64-2, RMM medium density multi-family residential district, subsection E, property development regulation, subsection 2, minimum building setbacks, subsection D, rear setbacks, permit the addition of a half bath that will encroach 1.4 foot from the required 15-foot rear setback. The property is located at 3 Fayette Drive and is legally described as Tropical Park Ad 1, Lot 1. All the fees have been paid and there was no additional correspondence received.
At this time, any ex parte communication should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence to be provided to the town clerk and made a part of the public record. In addition, each member of the board may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she conducted, or any expert opinions received, and disclose any conflicts of interest on this matter. Ready?
I did. I called Mrs. Rodriguez and asked if I could go into the backyard and see exactly what this setback looks like. I informed them at the time I could not give them any information on what I was thinking, but I just wanted a visual view of the property.
Anyone else?
Carla, I don't know if it qualifies as an investigation, but I looked at a previous variance that was granted on Percy Drive to compare. So,
Okay, thank you. We will then proceed with the hearing on this matter. Will the town clerk please swear in the witnesses?
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you've been sworn in. And please speak directly into the microphone.
We're ready to talk.
Not yet.
The town clerk and I will read over the justification A-G as required by the town code and also listed on page 2 of the application. That special condition and circumstances exist which are particular to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, our home was built in 1955 and does not conform to the current rear setback. An existing portion of our home encroaches into the 15-foot setback, rear setback by approximately 18 inches. The proposed half-bath addition would extend the part of the building that encroaches but would not increase the existing 18-inch encroachment. The structure is a multi-level and does not have a bathroom on the bottom floor. Not having a bathroom on the bottom level has become a burden for Melanie's mother, who is 82 years old. Though she does not live with us full-time, it has become necessary for her to spend more time with us as she ages. In addition to some recent health issues, Melanie's mother has knee problems that make it harder for her to climb the 10 steps to get to the bathroom on the second floor.
That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant.
The applicant responded, we have not made any changes or modifications to the building that would create the current conditions or circumstances.
That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, adding a half bath to the bottom level of our home will not grant us any special privilege, as most homes have at least a half bath on the first floor.
That liberal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance will deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance and would work unnecessary and undue harm on the applicant.
The applicant responded, most, if not all, multi-level homes have at least a half bath on the bottom level. Literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinances would deprive us of being able to add a half bath on the bottom level of our homes, as there is not another feasible location to add a half bath without a variance. It would also deprive Melanie of being able to eliminate the burden of the stairs to the bathroom when taking care of her mother.
That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible with reasonable use of the land, building, or structure.
The applicant responded, the proposed addition is a small 7 feet 1 inch by 9 feet 4 inches or 66 square feet that will allow for a foyer to maintain a rear egress and a small half bath of 3 feet by 6 feet 3 inches.
That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance.
The applicant responded, granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance, since the proposed addition would be an extension to an existing non-conforming structure with the same architectural appearance and will not have an impact on the surrounding neighbors.
That the variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare.
The applicant responded, the proposed addition would not be detrimental to the public welfare as it will not be visible from the front of the property, since the height of the addition will be well below the second story roof line. The proposed addition would have no impact to surrounding neighbors.
That the town staff will now make its presentation on the matter.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner, and I have been sworn in. I suppose. This is a request for a variance for 1.4 feet for rear yard setback, with a requirement of 15 feet to allow construction of the half bath, as you've heard. The existing structure is existing nonconformity, so the existing structure can remain and is protected under the nonconforming section of the code. The addition can't be constructed without a variance, however, and the request is to be consistent with the existing encroachment in the rear yard. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and that's all I have.
Any questions? Okay, the applicant will now make its presentation on this matter.
Hello. Robert Rodriguez,
Melanie Rodriguez.
3 Fayette Drive. I guess it was pretty well detailed what we're asking. It's just a small addition to the back of the house. It would be parallel to the rear property, and we wouldn't encroach any more than we already grandfathered in for the non-conforming of 15-foot setback. The only other thing I'd like to add, I guess it's not in the packet, is I did include a picture from the property appraisal and aerial. Pretty much most of the houses on Fayette don't conform to the 15-foot setback. So I guess our house was built in the 50s. I don't know when the 15-foot setback was applied or when they came up with the 15-foot setback. Actually, there's one more picture of the aerial, and you'll see that, yeah, that one. If you look, most of the houses on Fayette don't conform to the 15-foot setback. So that's just something else I wanted to point out. The only other thing, I guess, in our case with the purpose, I guess all this came about is Melanie's mom, she has a handicap permit. I don't know if you want to add this or not. And no, that's it. We feel it's a reasonable request, and we hope it gets approved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
At this time, any other member of the public who wishes to submit relevant information to the board may come forward and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Please indicate whether you are for or against the project or neither for or against the project. Any member of the public?
Morning, Mike Mishadek, 5 Engel Drive. I want to make the board aware that we are discussing between staff, the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Commission as part of the workshop that we had about a month ago. We're discussing an item that would actually address this particular subject. It's pending, it's not yet pending litigation, but it will be soon pending litigation. Legislation, I'm sorry, legislation, where these non-conforming structures that have an addition that gets built within the same setback, so it's not a further encroachment into it, where they get addressed on a legislative basis. The one thing where this particular applicant would not even have to come to the board for a variance because it would be granted through the legislation that would be on the books. One thing that I would like to ask you is to make sure that if you decide as a board to grant this variance, if you do grant it, put a note onto it, or attach basically a note onto it that this is granted based on the fact that there is pending or soon to be legislation that will address this particular subject in the first place, simply to prevent that we're basically opening a door by granting a variance for other people to come forward. And because it is in the same setback and it's just an addition that is within the same setback, this would be part of it. So try to word it in a way that it is clear that this is because it will be addressed anyway, that you would grant it, if you decide to grant it, of course. Thank you. I hope I made myself clear.
Staff will make final comments if necessary. Oh,
I had a question for Martin. Martin,
I'm sorry, yes.
I'm not clear on your rationale for appending that to the motion, because it doesn't really do anything, does it?
It would clear, whoever reads this down the road it would clear that this variance was only, if you grant a variance, this variance would only be granted or would be granted knowing that there is something that is being discussed to actually allow this in the first place.
But as a commission, we have no notice of this other than you telling us. We haven't seen any.
It was discussed already in the workshop.
We had
In
a
the
joint, yeah, we had a joint workshop between the town commission and the planning and zoning commission, and we're discussing nonconformities and special exceptions. And I think what Martin is trying to say is he doesn't want to set a precedent.
Correct.
If you are going to grant this variance, he just doesn't want to set a precedence and open the door.
Because whoever reads this down the road, somebody that reads this 2 years from now that this board granted a variance into a setback, they're going to come back and say, well, you granted this variance, why shouldn't I be allowed to get a variance for something entirely different?
So we would reference it as was discussed at that workshop.
Correct, that there's something that is going through the workshop right now, and that this applicant probably, say 6 months from now, would not even have to come to this board for the variance in the first. I would just like to have that on the record, so it's clear that this is not a random variance request or granting of a variance, that it's actually something that is tied to something that is being addressed in code right now.
Martin, we have no specific written knowledge that there is discussion in process. So if we include in the motion with the words without precedent, would that suffice for you? Because we can't talk about something that we have no specific knowledge on.
Under the law, when you grant a variance anyway, you are not setting a precedent. I know that one of the board members said she looked at another site, but variances are in of themselves unique. So no one can say you granted a variance for this guy, and so you have to grant it for me, because you have to look at each of the criteria that Carver read and the chair read. So I don't think that needs to be said. In fact, it worries me a little bit that it might create the wrong perception that the only reason they granted it is because there's maybe legislation. And the reason they can't really rely on it is because that's you saying it, it's not the board voting on it. We don't really have that voted on. It may never happen. What happens if it doesn't pass?
I leave that up to you, because you are the town
So,
attorney.
I think-
Whatever your recommendation, I just wanted to bring it forward that,
Right. You put
I
your
don't want
thoughts
to
on
open up the door.
you put your thoughts on the record, and I wrote, and I've made it clear that if you grant this, it is not precedent. You're looking at each of the criteria.
It would be specific.
Yes, and it's only gonna pertain to this property. So the next person will have to come back through this process unless we change it, going forward. So, yeah, and guess what? If you change it in a negative way, meaning that nobody could get it, they could not come back to this board and say you gave it to X, so you have to give it to me as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just say something on this subject? Probably the whole lower end of town, when it was brought into Ocean Ridge, was non-conforming, or could it really become conforming? I mean, back in the late 50s, early 60s, when they wrote these rules and regulations, they gave some leeway so that people could upgrade their property. They could not exceed the footprint that they had and could back it up. And Colonial Ridge was built in 1960. That whole wall along the property is a 10-foot setback. So, I mean, there's setback rules and regulations. This is why I thought there was variance in the setbacks, and that's why I wanted to go into the backyard and see how this whole thing ran. I don't know. I know that way back then they decided they couldn't force people off their property because they couldn't read the code at the time.
Okay.
I have a question for Mr. O'Gorman. Part of this variance is based on structural variance into a setback. I have a question functionally, because there's an additional bathroom being added. Is there any impact on the septic in the drain field? I didn't see that. But they did.
Oh, yeah. That would be a health department question. Thank you, Manny. Although I do think that there is calculation on a per fixture basis for flow. And actually, Durrani may be able to answer that for us. Is that correct?
By the way, I have a health department permit.
Ah, here you go.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought I included it.
I must have missed it or wasn't. Thank you.
Any other questions? The applicant, do you have any additional information?
You know, it's all in the packet.
I need to ask you a question. You're requesting a half bathroom that's 19 3/4 square feet and a foyer of approximately 45 square feet. Why?
The addition will be 66 square feet.
Right, total.
Yeah.
But the half bathroom is less than 20 square feet.
Yes, right now there's a door, a rear, we have on the first floor, there's front door and the back door. The back door, I guess, right there, I'm going to be extending there. So in order to maintain that egress, I have to create a little foyer and then the little half bath.
How many members of the board?
Yeah, basically, if you look at the picture, the new addition will be where the wood deck is. It would be extending that, keeping the same profile, extending it, well, which would be to the west parallel to the rear property line. And then technically of the 66 square feet, 11 will be the part that's non-conforming.
Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant or anyone who has spoken on this item? Okay, I now declare this quasi judicial hearing closed. We will now proceed with comment deliberation by the board. I will entertain a motion, unless there's any other discussion, for item 4 on the agenda.
I would move that we approve the variance as requested in the application.
We will now take a final vote on item 4. Town Clerk Armstrong, would you please call the roll?
Vice Chair Cody moved to approve the variance as submitted. Member Joa second. Vice Chair Cody, how do you vote on that motion?
Aye.
Member Joa, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Chair Float, how do you vote on the motion? Member Bingham, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
And Member Hendon, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Call the vote. Motion carries 5-0. Before we conclude, is there any other business before this board?
I have a comment to make on the previous minutes. There was a statement by Mr. Guy from Mr. Gavigan at the last meeting. It was concerning to me, and to some extent, I think was under duress at the time, but he was asked if he would require the demolition of a seawall if a prior structure was removed. And he said he would recommend that all accessory structures be removed, of which it was determined the seawall is an accessory structure. And in principle, I have a real problem with that statement. So as a point of order, I would like that clarified going forward, that seawalls are not removed specifically with the destruction of a prior building or structure.
Attorney?
Sure. Well, the board can state that, but the board can't make a decision, it's in and of itself on the code. So I guess what you're saying is if the issue were presented to you, you would find that the code as written would allow for a seawall to stand if there was
a structure that has been removed. You can say that as an individual, the board can vote on that, and then staff will either have to do one of two things. Disagree, or talk to the commission about changing the code to make it clear, because it's obvious that your interpretation is different from the building official's interpretation. And I'm not sure if you want to make it a motion at this point. Maybe you want to have us go and look at the issue, because you haven't had a chance to look at all of the codes. Everyone sitting here has not had an opportunity. That's your opinion, and I'm not gonna say that it's a wrong opinion. But maybe the motion should be to have staff look closer at the issue and bring back some clarification, because obviously, if you feel that way, if the building official feels another way, we have a serious difference of opinion, and we don't want to, in any way, hurt an applicant coming forward with something, and forcing them to appeal every time the building official makes a statement. So if that's something that, that you'd like us to look into and to explore further, and even bring back to the Board of Adjustment, I suggest a motion to that effect.
I think a motion would be really relevant, especially if we have a 5-0 vote on the motion. Could you give us a motion to make?
So are you okay with what I said?
Yes.
A motion to have staff look at, more closely at the issue of the seawall matter that you brought forward, and to bring it back to this board for further discussion, and or take it to the commission for further discussion. Let's do that.
Would you like to make?
Yeah.
Just say so moved.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Need a second on that.
I'll second.
Could we have a roll call vote on that?
I mean, you don't need one, but if you can just say all
All
that,
in favor?
all in favor, yeah.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Oh, one opposed. Motion carries 4-1. Any other business before the board? I now declare this meeting closed. You all take care and be safe.